give you the high level. There's a short story and long story. I can give you the short story for sure. And the short story, both are accurate, but the short story I can give you. The short story is it evolved from a focus on where I was focused, legal, constitutional issues, legislative issues of if you want to save a lot of money, you got to do it through legislation. If you want to look at the Supreme Court land.
There ain't no legislation in Congress is so difficult to do. So this is Vivek. I never reacted to this. He's talking about what happened with Doge. And for me, I am interested in this still because I don't think Elon Musk should be running Doge anymore. I don't trust him. I mean, I'm just looking at it. I should have never trusted him before. But the Ashley St. Clair stuff, and I'm not reliving that whole thing right now, but what it did bring up to light is she came on and she's basically begging, she could be trying to set him up for a legal thing or whatever, but still, that's what it is she's begging the father of her child for some type of acknowledgement. And this bro just doesn't even acknowledge her. Man, that's not even on some legal stuff. That's just on your relationship with God. That at that point, that's between you, God, and the mother of your children. Should be wife, but in this case, mother of children. And if you can't handle that, I can't trust you with anything. So then I go back and I look through on Doge and I'm like, it's just like the Twitter files. He only showed us what he wanted to. Nothing came of it. All he did with the Twitter files was try to gain trust of people. And you have all these right-wingers who trust Elon Musk because that's where they're getting their money from. If you go against Elon, you're done on X. If you're with Elon and he retweets you and stuff like that, you can make some money. So he's just trying to gain trust. I don't trust him off the rip. Then I was like, wait a second. This is the same dude who doxed young Nick, and I'm not going to say his name on here. He's going to be Voldemort because I'm on my after show Carnage. I'm trying to keep that channel pure. So it doesn't so I know it doesn't get put up under because I'm talking about the hats and naming them directly. And young Nick too. So then he allows a dox of young Nick to get millions of views on his site against his own terms and conditions, hasn't acknowledged it. He's propping up the post of his baby mama while he knows, and other people on X know. Laura Loomer knew. She knew and didn't say anything. Allegedly, Elijah Schaefer knew, and Pearl Davis knew, and I guess they all knew and didn't say anything. Why is that? Are you cool with her or what? I know Pearl Davis isn't. I guess they said they didn't know for sure or whatever, but my point is, I don't trust it because to me, that's laundering money. Especially you're not transparent. So even if you don't think that's laundering money, I'm saying he's getting ad money and he's propping it up to his friends and his baby mama and pretending like, oh, join X, you can earn money and you might get $20 and his baby mama's getting every 2 weeks, at least at the time she did it, $7,500. That's to me laundering money. That's a falsehood. That's consumer fraud, in my opinion. And this is the guy I'm going to trust for audit. We're talking about life or death, doxing. And I actually think, I mean, this is an unpopular take, but I actually think the doxing is legal. There's no law against it, posting somebody's address when it's public information. But he says he has a website. He has terms and conditions. They took down Ken Flippenstein when he didn't even dox JD Vance, but they still blocked him or whatever, took him down. And they didn't do that for Nick. So would he have done that for his baby mama? Of course he would have. So we've got all kinds of trust issues, right? And that's not even all of them. And you think I'm going to trust him to run Doge? I would trust this Jeet before Elon Musk. Of course. Of course I would trust Vivek over that. Well, let's get back to the clip.
Landscape for the last few years. It says a lot of these regulations are unconstitutional. That's where I had been focused. And, the way it's gotten started, and you can see this publicly as well, is much more of a technology and digital technology focus.
Okay, so just slow down for a second.
Yeah.
So you were going to use the Constitution to remove legislation.
Well, to remove regulations.
Sorry, regulations.
Yeah.
So you're going to use legislation to remove regulations.
And I've written about this for the last year, right? So
can you give
But that's not a good approach. The approach that they're taking with Doge is right. And Vivek might be telling the truth because that doesn't match up with what, I mean, he could have made that up too to gracefully leave, but that approach is not going to work. They're going fast, hard hitting. You've got to go straight executive order, executive action. Congress will follow because they'll see people cheerleading on the sidelines. And that's the way to go. You can attack it that way too, but that's a long-term thing.
Example of that?
Yeah, I can give a good example of that. So, not to get too academic too quickly, but basically, Congress is supposed to pass the laws and the executive branch is supposed to enforce the laws. But it turns out that most of the laws that decide what you can and can't do in your life were actually never passed by Congress. They were passed by people who were never elected to their position.
The managerial
class, the bureaucrats in DC.
What's a law? Give me an example.
Yeah, so they don't call laws, they call them rules, but they have the effect of laws.
Right.
Let's say the amount of fees that fishermen have to pay to the government to have a license to be able to fish in a particular area. Let's say it is the registration requirement before.
Yeah, that's not the vision of Doge.
A bank or an asset manager is allowed to do business. Let's say it is the procedural hoop that a biotech company has to jump through before advancing from phase 1 to phase 2 of the development process. Let's say it's the permission that a coal miner or a nuclear energy plant has to get as permission from the government before they build a new nuclear energy plant, which, by the way, has not happened in 20 years in this country because the red tape associated with doing so is so impossible.
Now, I imagine
none of those were passed by Congress.
Yes.
None of those were passed by people that we, the people, elected.
Right.
They were written into law. They call them rules, but effectively into law by unelected bureaucrats.
Right.
And the thing is, that's not a democracy, right? It might be something else, but it's not a democracy because in a democracy, if somebody makes a law that affects you, you get to vote them out. That's what it makes a law. These are more like edicts.
Yeah.
Right? Edicts come from a king because you can't vote him out. This doesn't come from a king, but it's a new kind of edict of a bureaucracy.
So just so I can
that
understand,
was the problem.
You're not against regulation as long as it's decided by democratically elected officials.
That's my most foundational principle. It so happens in my
Because
own
some of these-
politics, I'm generally pretty libertarian. I tend to be against. I think most of these regulations tend not to
But
be.
sometimes-
Well, what happened, this is a completely different thing than Doge, but it is something I've thought about in the past. It gets kind of geeky and nerdy, really. But what they're really doing is Congress is saying we can't do a law for every little thing, like how much, I don't know, like if I'm not an expert in all this stuff, but I'll just make something up, like how often does a farmer have to till their field? Congress is like, we're not going to make laws on that. So we'll leave that up to this agency to do a regulation. And then the judicial system reviews it and Congress is like, we're out. We just give you the general law. And then the regulations have to come from the executive branch. But you see how that the EPA does that. It leaves room for manipulation.
Productive.
You need regulation.
But the most important principle is if you're going to have it, at least let the people who it affects to say, if it's not working out for me, I want to be able to vote you out.
Now,
I need to be able to vote you out.